Introduction of speaker for the topic entitled Eco-Friendly Building Materials. Our distinguished speaker is a director and at the same time the committee chair on urban development, green building and sustainability of the Infrastructure and Construction Focus Group Philippines, or ICFG. Also, active professionally as architect, environmental planner, CIAC accredited construction arbitrator, and green building advocate for resiliency and sustainability. Principal architect of his own design firm, Iconic. He just concluded his term as the executive director of the Construction Industry Authority of the Philippines, or CIAP, an attached agency of the Philippine Department or the Philippines Department of Trade and Industry, and also accelerates, promote, and regulates the construction industry. Our dear architect speaker is affiliated with the Philippine Institution of Environmental Planners, or PIEP, the Philippine Green Building Initiative, or PGBI, Philippine Institute of Construction Arbitration and Mediators, or PICAM, and the Eastern Asian Regional Organization of Public Housing. He is also current committee chair on resilience, intellectual property, invention, and innovation of the United Architects of the Philippines, for which in the past he also served as the UAP National Executive Vice President. With more than 38 years professional experience in the field of construction, architecture, green technology, design, and sustainable development involving international and local complex projects such as military facilities, palaces, hospitals, airports, evacuation center, among others. Our dear speaker is not only a licensed architecture but also an environmental, urban, city planner, and certified EDGE, or Excellence in Design for Greater Efficiencies, an IFC, a member of the World Bank Group, EDGE expert, and accredited auditor. As an advocate for resiliency and sustainability, he's been an active volunteer for the UAP Emergency Architects and Alliance of Safe and Sustainable Reconstruction, or ASSURE, team with partnership with USAID, GIZ, OstAid, Humedica, Consuelo Foundation, AmeriCAID, Habitat, Oxfam. Actively involved in the technical assistance of 49 LGUs in Samar, Leyte, and Cebu aftermath of the Yolanda disaster event. Currently a mentor for Bloomberg Mayor's League and Livable Cities program, and a resource speaker, lecturer on innovative designs, green strategies, construction methodology, disaster risk mitigation, and climate change impacts, among others. Currently, a trustee of Zero Waste Philippines and a member of UAP Gold, or Guild of Liturgical Designers. Let's all welcome, with a massive round of applause, to our speaker architect, Ramon L. ABIERA.
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Naririnig niyo ako? Hello? Am I clear?
Yes, architect, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizer of this CamSur event for inviting me. Actually, I was invited by DMCI to be the speaker for this particular topic. So, can I share the screen? My screen, where is that? Share screen, share screen. Okay. Share screen. Share screen. That's not it. first of all, actually, I should start from the start. In this case, I am because we have previous speakers. Uh, I would like to number one, I listened to the previous speakers, and I am very happy that uh, everybody now is getting into the business of changing our mindsets towards more green structures. The topic that I have been provided is eco-friendly materials, and I added construction systems. You see, eco-friendly materials are in different forms. Like for example, if you look at uh, the, the various materials being used for buildings today, we have the number one top material that is being used for our built environment is actually concrete. Concrete also represents the generation of about 19% of all the greenhouse gases and emissions, and consume about 40% of the electricity globally. Uh, the second topic the second thing that I want to mention about eco-friendly materials is embodied energy. This one is a lot of non-technical people would be, uh, I would say, unfamiliar with embodied energy. But for those who are practicing green designs, embodied energy is no other than the amount of energy that is consumed in the process of from mining to production uh, to a square meter of material. So the value of embodied energy for different materials are all different. So if you have concrete, one type of concrete, for example, concrete slab, the default will be different from the other types of concrete slabs that might be utilized for the design. So embodied energy is important because if we consume a lot of energy for all the materials that we use for all the buildings that we have, what will happen is there will be a greater demand to construct more power plants. It's actually the power plants that provide the electricity that consume most of these, that generates most of these greenhouse gases. So embodied energy also is the front end component of a life cycle impact for building. In other words, if you start with very high embodied energy materials, uh, you will have a lesser, you have a greater impact of the building at the end of its life cycle, because you must be able to reuse this energy or these materials so that they can be further appropriated for our built environment. So next one is, as I mentioned, our main problem with climate change is actually our CO2 emissions. And the CO2 emissions are, in general, being caused by cement production. Iron and steel sector amount to 11%, while cement uh, is about 5 to 7%. And the 5% is of entire electrical generation is spent on the production of aluminum, which we use for many components of our built environment also. So these manufactured materials are primarily for construction of homes, commercial buildings, infrastructure, and there is a big boom in the construction, except that it's dampened because of this pandemic. But because uh, all over the world there is a growth of population bound to cities. Like for example, in China, there's a big population that goes to cities from their provinces. And so with the influx of more populations to urban areas and city centers, there is a need for housing and also for where they will be working. So this one causes a lot of uh, infrastructures and buildings to be built for this purpose. As you can see, for example, these manufactured materials used are basically steel, glass, concrete, and aluminum. There are many other materials that are being utilized, but if you can see, concrete uh, is the highest use, and so as with aluminum, glass, and steel. So if we were to think of eco-friendly materials, then we would perhaps have to focus on these materials, which are the majority of its uses in buildings. So not only does the manufacturing of building materials significantly increase greenhouse gas emissions, but it also cause levels of air pollution. For example, in Dhaka, the production of bricks is responsible for about 58% of the city capital's pollution. Modern cars, power generation, and other industries combined. So you can see that eco-friendly materials come in many forms. Uh, Materials that have less embodied energy, materials that are non-polluting, materials that are less toxic to our kind, to mankind, and our environment. These are all eco-friendly materials. As the previous speakers were discussing, I note that, for example, bamboo. Bamboo is actually a they call this the future of renewable material. In fact, it's already being, as presented a while ago, it's already being widely used in some countries like in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and in fact, UAP, the United Architects of the Philippines, is trying to push uh, for the training of tradesmen and architects and designers to better understand the materials. So bamboo and other materials, not only bamboo, but there are other materials like hemp and other fibrous materials uh, are actually being manufactured in many different kinds of building materials, such as flooring. They have this also done in fibers, in woven thing, and also in uh, free-flowing concrete shapes. Use also fiber materials. As a global trend, there is a tightening of regulations in the operational energy consumption of buildings. In fact, our national, what do you call this, our Green Building Code uh, tells us to uh, reduce certain conditions so that we will become a more positive uh, built environment in its 40 years or 50 years of operation. You see, buildings, unlike other creation of man, they last long. Uh, Not only that they last long, about 40 years to 100 years. In fact, in historical buildings lasted all 2,000 years, 1,000 years. But more importantly today, it's that it will last long, but at the same time it will be safe because now society demands and the governments demand more safety for its population. So we don't only do buildings that last long, but also are safe. And because I'm also an environmental planner and a very uh, experienced in uh, disaster risk reduction, I can tell you that there are so many types of disasters. And for this, I think we need the materials that will be able to at least withstand or not support uh, disasters to happen, and protect people who utilizes all this built environment. Okay. For example, if you want to find a realistic way to reduce embodied energy, for example, of the roof and floor structure, number one is you have to reduce the quantity of material. This is a, you see, if you produce material in this volume, there is a equivalent embodied energy. If you use lesser material, therefore, you will be having a reduction in embodied energy. I will show you a little while in another slide the various type, for example, of floor slabs. There are many kinds. Yung nakikita natin is just one. There are many kinds, and all of them have a different what you call this embodied energy. Another thing is if we are able to substitute high embodied energy material with lower embodied energy material, for example, cement. If you use the standard cement, it has a certain embodied energy, but in the process of manufacturing cement, sometimes some manufacturers they add pulverized fly ash or PFA or uh, ground granulated blast furnace slugs. Ito yung mga natitira pagka nagsusunog sila, hinahalo sa semento, the cement becomes, they name it green cement. Why? Because now that cement contains less energy to produce because part of what went into the cement is actually a byproduct of another process. Of course, the other one is also to be able to select more efficient construction technology. I will show you one example later on because the design should be good, the material should be good, but also it should be implemented in a sustainable and resilient way too. So there are many kinds of construction methodology that can be utilized to further reduce the embodied energy. And the other one is identify completely different materials. This is where, for example, bamboo and other indigenous materials that we have are being researched upon and being developed into products and substitute manufactured materials so that they can be more eco-friendly. Here, for example, just to show you about floor slabs, this one here shows you actually the default, which is just the in situ reinforced concrete slab that we can all see in the many structures that we have. However, if you have the light gauge steel floor cassette, a timber floor construction, a thin precast concrete deck, composite in situ slab, precast concrete double P units, composite in situ concrete, and so many others, then all of these have a different embodied energy. So I think uh, clients and designers must keep an open mind to be able to utilize not only the material but also how the material is designed into the structure. Uh, you can design it one way, it will be having a very high embodied energy, but if you utilize the different configurations and design technology, then you will be able to achieve a lower embodied energy. Okay, the key is paying attention in the early design stage, because in the early design stage, there are two things that happen. Number one, they get to be incorporated in the design uh, as a default. Why is that important? Well, because if it is not a default in the design, it becomes an alternative. So sometimes the greenness or green features um, seemingly becomes more expensive when the owner understands that, oh, may dinagdag kayo, may dinadagdag pa na green. Huwag na yan. So I think by putting it early in the design stage prior to being presented to the client or the owners, it becomes the default, and it makes a sensible design, uh, and specifications are thus embodied in this the greenness is thus embodied in the design and the specifications. And the good thing about this is if it's in the design and it is implemented, uh, ito yung sinasabi na for the next 40 or so years, it tends to become energy efficient design, because the greenness is thus embodied in the design itself. So, uh, what's this? Building the amount of construction materials. Another thing that we should consider is the value chain. The value chain is also important because we have to understand what is, for example, one example is steel. It's actually principally composed of iron ore, carbon, and requires substantial energy to be produced. For example, concrete. Concrete is a product used for buildings, mostly of aggregates, including gravel and sand. So, concrete does not only utilize energy, it also utilizes a lot of gravel and sand, and also cement and water. And these are all resources. And resources are not infinite. So sooner or later, maubusan tayo ng sand if we continuously use too much of it, and gravel also. So that's why sometimes they tend to use crushed gravel rather than the natural gravel, because wala na makuhang gravel. And this is one of the greatest contributor to the use of sand and gravel by sector. So if we all understand what materials are components of certain building materials, then we get to understand how to save on all of this and how it impacts our environment. Correctly, today, the first speaker, architect Jonus, actually mentioned about the wise use of these materials, because all of these, number one, are God-given, and because of our natural resources that were God-given to us, we have to make wise use of it, and use it according to our needs, not according to our greed. Okay, cement, sand. Okay, I said this already. Okay. The other components of cement, for example, are made of limestone, clay, shells, chalk, shale, slate, silica, sand, and sometimes even blast furnace slag, the one I mentioned a while ago, and or iron ore. These ingredients are crushed and heated to a high temperature, and they become clinker. The gypsum is added, and the whole mixture is finely ground to produce cement powder. So another one that uses maraming gamit din sa ating infrastructure ay asphalt. The main ingredient of asphalt used for construction, transport infrastructure, mostly roads, is composed of petroleum byproduct and aggregate. And there's a lot of other materials and that are being utilized in construction. You know that there are about 30% of our world population living in rammed earth construction. And at the moment, uh, it is regaining interest in even in industrialized countries. Rammed earth is just compacted earth, and I am surprised with also that about 30% of the world population still to this day live in rammed earth construction. Okay, there are, as I mentioned, other alternative construction materials can also be locally sourced depending on their availability and application to construction as a construction material. We have sugar cane bagas, bamboo, and all the other fibers, abaca, jute, uh, are now being studied and for its applicable applications to construction. So uh, I go to the okay. The most important thing to make certain economic choices, eco-friendly choices. Number one, the cheapest is actually the change of mindset. This is the change of mindset of the client, of the designers, of the contractors, and everybody in the whole construction industry. You see, mindset is very cheap. You don't have to pay for it. Unfortunately, it's not something that can be gifted to you. It's not something that you can buy. It's not something that your mother can give you as an inheritance. But it's something that you have to embrace. The only way you can get a change of mindset is you have to personally embrace it. So, at this time in our global pandemic and also our climate change, we, the people of this planet, need to change our mindset. We have to change a mindset that we need to develop, use, and build our built environment according to green standards in order for our environment to be sustainable and for us to develop more resiliency to the various disasters that come our way. We cannot do anything about these natural disasters. They come on their own. However, we can reduce the mitigate the effects on us and our built environment. The other thing, aside from change of mindset, which of course will embody everything, will be to reduce our use of material, to recycle construction materials, to reuse. The other one is to reduce. This one is to reuse whatever we remove from other structures. We have to refuse to use materials that are not green, and we repurpose our projects or our structures so that we don't have to build new ones. And the next one is, of course, where architects and engineers can come into play. We have to develop better green designs. However, these designs can only be implemented if the owners were to accept them, because as I always say, if you understand the cost to you that you'll be wasting on energy throughout its entire life cycle, then you would be able to decide that this one should be included in the design, because it's a big amount. if you were to say, for example, so much multiplied by 40 years, if you do anything about it, then it's good. You save that money. However, if you do not do anything about it and you say, oh, let's not put it in the building, you do not know that you will be spending the same amount as a waste in its 40 years. So whether you do anything or not, you're going to either lose or get back that savings. The other thing is we have to use low embodied energy materials as much as we can in our design. So number one is knowledge. Designers must be aware of this different embodied energy materials so that they can use it in application in their design. Times that. Oh, yeah. And then we also use non-polluting materials. Example are formaldehyde uh, and other like uh, used oils that are being thrown on the ground is a polluting material. And VOC in paints. Uh, these are very polluting materials. And the other one is to use innovative construction methodology. Sometimes the way we construct is almost the same as before. But there are new technologies, new equipments that are now available and have been used for a long time in other countries and found them to be very successful. Uh, I will show you one example later. So here I will show you another kind of slide. Oh, kasunod ba? Dali lang ha, share ko lang yung kabilang slide eh. Pag-uubigay. Oh my God. Ay, ito. Here. Okay. Okay, the other eco-friendly materials are actually part of strategies being utilized by green practitioners, uh, green designers. One of them is mentioned also is energy saving light bulbs, which reduce our energy consumption. So you can consider them as eco-friendly materials. Lighting controls for corridors and outdoor spaces. Ito yung tinatawag na wherein you can actually reduce areas kung wala silang tao. We have solar hot water collectors, solar photovoltaic smart meters. All of them you can and also of course natural ventilation would save. So by having adequate natural ventilations for our projects would definitely be towards a good choice. We can also see in habitable homes so that people in those rooms would have the choice to use the ceiling fans instead of air conditioning. If you use air conditioning systems, you have to have COP of 3.5 or better. You use, these are already mentioned a while ago, high efficiency boilers, heat pumps, light bulbs. Okay. The other thing is just even the color, even just the color of our structure and the roof has a big impact on our energy consumption. For example, if your color is gray, you have this one. It has a heat index of about 20%. And if you have white, you have 69 reflectance. So even the color has something to do with our energy consumption inside the building. So that's something that you have to discuss with your designers and green consultants. So a reflective finish for walls can reduce the cooling load in air-conditioned spaces and improve thermal comfort in uncooled spaces. So dalawang bagay, it can reduce the cooling load in air-conditioned space, and for those uncooled spaces, they can improve thermal comfort for the users. So even for example, you see just the color of the concrete, new concrete, you have 35 to 45 solar reflectivity. You have fired bricks, 17 to 56. So uh, if you paint your concrete white, you have a reflectivity of about, which is higher. And if you have a solar reflectivity that is higher, most of the heat will be bounced off your building. External providing shadings, these are all choices. Now I want to go to the I will go. Then you have the use of insulation. So insulation is actually an eco-friendly material. Now, what type of insulation do you use? But insulation in general is an eco-friendly material because it improves the building envelope and make cooling the building using less energy. So different types of insulation have different types of conductivity. So this one you have to discuss with your designers so that, but insulations in general is an eco-friendly material so that you can, sabi nga nila, it's all about the building envelope, preserving the building envelope and in providing sufficient insulations for heat to come into the building and from the air, cold air inside the building to vent out. So, type you have vacuum insulated panels. These are strategies or different types of systems that you can use. You have phenolic foams, expanded polystyrene, wood, but even vacuum air gap provides insulation. So also glasses, low E glass is an eco-friendly material because although it's more expensive, it definitely helps in preventing uh, heat, coldness coming out and heat going in. So low E glass, that's why there's another strategy wherein you have to reduce the window to wall ratio in order to reduce also the ability of heat from the outside coming into the cold space. Also, there's a high performance glass. Meron double pane. Ngayon, gusto na yung triple pane. The reason is they just try to make sure that, especially in cold countries, they want to make sure that the heat inside the building will not go out to the cold ambient air outside sa mga malalamig na countries. Ano? Okay, this is an example how a high performance glass can actually prevent heat coming from the sun, radiating heat getting into the building. And maraming types of systems that are being employed. You see, this one is in cold climate. This is a film. This is a sprayed onto the glass. Is this one should put it here, but in warm climate you put it here. So so materials, even glass, concrete, steel, there is a eco-friendly material depending on how it is used and how it is implemented in our buildings. So I wanted to show you really is yung ito. For example, these are the different types of uh, finishes, ano, different finish you apply for building has a different embodied energy. Each one, you have stone, you have vinyl flooring, they all have different embodied energy being in megajoules per square meter. So the higher the megajoules per square meter being utilized, you have a very high embodied energy. So iba-ibang materials, you don't have to uh, memorize any of these. These are resource materials that you need, your designers need to check on them to determine the total embodied energy of your building. And also there's a new one which is the net zero. Besides having very low embodied energy for the building is also generating its own power, ability to generate its own power and its own energy. So in Japan, they have many of these. In the Philippines, we have a net zero building certified structure that we have in Makati. So I will go to the next one. I'm just looking at the watch and um, I need to share here is I need to bring this up there. Share, share here, here. Okay. So now we go to a type of construction methodology that is cheaper. Uh, if you go to the States, you will see and note that there are many projects, especially in California, where there is a lot of earthquake. Also, there is a lot of. If I stayed in the States for almost 8 years, you know, if you pass by one area, sometimes what happens is you see that the buildings are being constructed after just a few months, a month or so, makikita mo nakatayo na yung structures, ang bilis. So one of the rationale why these buildings are being executed quickly is because of tilt-up construction methodology. So tilt-up construction methodology is almost similar to precast. The difference between precast and this one is in precast, it is done in a factory and then afterwards it is hauled. It is hauled to the site. One of the problems of that is that, of course, the precasting company does not only have you as a client, they also have so many clients. So what happens is in the delivery process, nagkakaroon ng bottleneck. And so sometimes there is a delay in the schedule. The other thing is it costs money to transport these sections and items of precast concrete. And so the difference is in tilt-up construction, the casting is being done, I will just show you here, being done right on the site. They are casted on the site. This one, these panels. They are casted right on the slab of the project. What happens is you achieve a lot of savings. One of the savings that you achieve is you do not use formwork. Formwork costs money in construction. The other one is if you were in vertical and people were working in the vertical, they tend to work slower and becomes the safety issue becomes higher. But if they were working on the ground, they don't use formworks. Their ability to work is faster because they are not in danger of falling. And the other thing is that They work faster. There's little wastage, and the safety is increased, and the delivery of the entire project is quicker. So the other good thing about tilt-up panel is because the ones that are being delivered are limited by the amount of transportation equipment available. So if you have very large sections, you cannot transport them, or maybe you have odd sections or odd shape sections. You cannot transport them through our streets. But in tilt-up construction, that can be done right on the slab and lifted here. Walang transportation cost. Walang shoring cost, and also yung framing and the people work faster. So actually, I researched this, and the outcome I wanted to show you, because sometimes they think tilt-up construction only comes out with like a bodega type, or it's ugly, there's no beauty. Well, actually, I took some of this, and they look beautiful, really. And even the finishes, they can have a finish already built into it. These are all designed. It's also the good thing is also fire safety. It's completely fireproof, because they are made of thick panels. It's very easy maintenance. The repairs and expandability. You can actually remove the panels when you want to renovate and reuse them in another area. So this is something that is possible with other types. And security-wise, because they are stronger. So with this, I'd like to say that let me turn off this. Okay. With this, I'd like to mention that in our eco-friendly materials, we need to expand a little bit. That includes not only eco-materials, but also a change of mindset, good green designs. We also have to have use of non-toxic and polluting materials. We have to use materials with low embodied energy. We have to use materials that are locally available, that are innovative and resilient and sustainable. So the word of eco-friendly materials should be expanded to incorporate all these other things. Maraming salamat po. I'd like to thank once again the CamSur event for inviting and for having a wonderful topic regarding green. I am an advocate, and I am very happy that the other speakers and the CamSur event invited and had these topics. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Architect ABIERA. If I may add, sir, I would like to take note of this. Architect ABIERA, my dear friends, was personally and highly recommended and endorsed by DMCI or DM Consunji Incorporated, President and CEO, Mr. George A. Consunji, and also Engineer Ronaldo Elepaño Jr., the Senior Vice President or Senior Advisor, Vice President, International Business Development of DMCI. And how delighted we were, sir, when we learned that you have accepted our invitation. And so we thank you so much again, sir. So ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for our distinguished speaker, Architect Ramon ABIERA. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Sir, here is our question for you. We have a question. The first question is, how can we benefit from using eco-friendly materials?
Okay, of course, we can benefit as an owner. As an owner of a project, we will benefit because we can be assured that our building uh, is built on green principles. In other words, we are building uh, uh, for the future, meaning we are building to save, not to over uh, exhaust our resources. So it's a good thing because you don't only make money, but also you help in the preservation of our resources, a wise use of our resource as an owner. And also, you also generate savings. Savings because you are able to save on energy, future energy uses such as less use of water resource, less energy resource. Lahat yun may cost yan eh. And the owners will be the number one beneficiary of this one because when they operate their buildings will be using less, paying for less of these resources to operate their buildings. Secondly, as mentioned by the previous two speakers, that green buildings have certified green buildings have a higher cost for rentals and also the appreciation of its value is faster. So for the architects and the designers, uh, building using green, eco-friendly materials, number one, provides you with expertise that you can continue to deliver to your future clients. And you are also taking part in saving resources for our future generations. And also, you provide savings for the operational cost of the structures that you make. Your owners will be very happy in the long end after so many years. Sabi ko nga, it's like a gift you give to your clients that continues to give a gift every year. And for our economy, of course, it's number one. It's also good because we tend to become more efficient in the use of our resources so that more resources can be utilized for other purposes also. And of course, this is a good part of the global need uh, for mitigating climate change. Alam mo, one of the things uh, that impacts climate change is actually our location. The location of the Philippines is located smack in the middle of the uh, where all of these natural disasters such as typhoon comes by, earthquake all over around us. So ang nangyayari, we are able to become more resilient and we are able to contribute in our own small way towards the mitigation of this natural risk. So for our government, it's also good because uh, it will be able to wisely use the budget that it has and not wasting it on wasteful use of energy and water resources. Alam mo, water is very important. You know, the slowest disaster is actually drought. So drought is actually a disaster that is very slow but very wide in scope. So if we don't use our water resources wisely, then that will be a problem for us. So these are the benefits that we can see when we use these eco-friendly materials.
Thank for that answer. Our next question, sir, is how do we know which eco-friendly materials to use?
Okay. Hindi siya nakapackage tapos nakalagay. Ako, maraming mga ibang tao na nilalagay lang na eco-friendly or maybe green material. Pero in reality, ito yung may pag isa tinitingnan, yung tinatawag na recycled content. Minsan mga materials that hindi siya pure. Pagka gumagamit sila ng purely virgin material, that means walang recycled. Ang ibig sabihin nun, bagong hango yun kung saan man nila nanggaling yun. Hindi kagaya ng may recycled content, yung mga scraps nila, yung mga kinolektan nila na waste ng kanilang mga produkto na igagamit na sa recycled content. So isa yun sa hinahanap, yung may nakalagay na recycled content. Yung iba naman, for example sa paint, yung low VOC, that's eco material pagka mababa ang volatile organic compounds niya. Also, there are materials nakalagay din, no formaldehyde content. So, ibig sabihin, walang formaldehyde or no lead content. Kasi yung lead is, by this time, alam na natin, it has a very dangerous effect on the human body. Also, we look at materials that are long-lasting. Kasi, number one, kung kumuha ka ng material today, bukas sira na, di wasteful yun. Kasi kailangan naman siyang palitan, repair. So, kailangan medyo resiliency enough to withstand the built environment and the disasters that and the harsh environment that these materials are subjected in. Kaya nga yung an example is the color of the roof. When the roof is subjected to too much heat, mas hindi siya mag-deteriorate compared to roof that is cooler. So if you have materials that are cooler, for example sa bubong, like we use light colored or we use other kinds of strategies, then the roof material itself will be serving longer, and also the bottom part, which is the ceiling, will also stay longer because it's not subjected to too much heat. Particularly ngayon, medyo paminsan pag mainit, sobrang init. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And briefly, sir, can you give us your answer for the third question? How does eco-friendly materials help in mitigating the effects on climate change?
Well, actually, binanggit din kanina nung other speaker, eco-friendly material, green buildings, and environment are all tied down together. Magkakapatid yan, magkakasama yan. So, if we took positive action to reinforce our use of eco-friendly materials, yung eco-friendly materials, like for example, in plastic, yung one use plastic, di ba pinagbabawal na yun, yung single use lang. So it's the same plastic material, medyo kinapalan lang nila para hindi pagkatapos gamitin, sira na agad. So these are some of the wise use. Now, we all know that all these plastics, sabi nga in the blue-green environment, in the blue-green strategy, anything that we throw on land will find its way in the water. So if we reduce waste, we recycle, we repurpose, we recycle, we repurpose, we refrain from using certain materials that are not eco-friendly, and we do all the other things that I mentioned, and then we help in our own small way in addressing and reducing and mitigating the risk of climate change. Climate change is a global issue. That means it needs a global solution. And when I say global, everybody's solution. Kaya kailangan each one of us should be a participant in our own small way, as in the construction industry. Everybody gets to do its part to help in this endeavor.
Thank you so much, sir. That's a great sharpening of mind as we'll listen to you about eco-friendly materials. Friends, we are deeply honored to have our dear speaker, Architect Ramon V. or L. ABIERA.